Hi, it's Helen Tarrant. Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm actually going to go over with you why do investors fail, especially on commercial property deals, and what they can do to actually fix that. So the main thing that people fail in commercial property deals is because they negotiate either too little or they negotiate too much. There is a middle point, but it's not actually about the middle point. It's actually about the type of property you are actually buying. The reason that I say that is because the property you are buying determines what kind of due diligence you're going to do on that property and determines what you should be asking for as part of your due diligence and what you should be negotiating for. So let's, for example, you have a set and forget property. So you're buying a set and forget. And the way that I look at set and forget is that it gives you cash flow from day one. And what it means is it's got a solid tenant in there. The tenant's on a really good lease or a proper lease, properly executed. Everything stacks up. They have they've been in the property for a while. They've helped to improve the property by doing a fit out on the property, and the vendor and the tenant gets on really well. It's just run-of-the-mill property. You buy it, you get cash flow instantly, and it continues to go for years to come. So that is the key to a set and forget property. Now, if you're looking at a uplift property, which is the other type of property you might get in commercial, then that kind of property is actually a property that comes with warts and all. So property with lots and lots of issues. So that's the property that would have, let's say, a property that may have rented tenants. The property may be run down. The property may need a refurbishment. The property may have issues like air conditioning, roof. It might have the toilet may need to be replaced. The capital works needs to be spent. Maybe non-compliant mezzanine. All sorts of things that could happen to that. That could be that property. The tenant could be on month to month. A lot of things. The property is not perfect. So you are buying a not perfect property. And the aim of the game is that you actually make that property perfect. Now, if you are buying a set and forget property, you are expecting perfection. If you are buying an uplift property, there's no such thing as perfection. So what happens is most people negotiate wrongly for these properties, and as a result of it, they lose out on the deal because the vendor gets fed up with them. The vendor gets pissed off. There's a frustration between the vendor and the purchaser. You end up accumulating solicitors fees, and then you don't go through with finance because the application is structured wrong, and then everything falls apart. And that is the biggest mistake that people make in a commercial property deal. And they go into it and they spend all this money, and before they know it, they're $10,000 or $20,000 out of pocket. Now, to avoid that, and that's when people get burnt and they never want to go back to commercial. To avoid that, the number one thing is get clear on what type of property you are buying. So if you're buying a set and forget property, you are in the market paying a premium. So what that premium is, you're paying market cap rate or market yield for that property based on how the market is tracking at that time. So for example, right now, if you're buying in Brisbane, you're expecting 6 to 6.5%, and you're buying at that rate. And as long as there's a property that's got a tenant in it, the agent will sell that property at that yield every day of the week. Now, if you have a uplift property, which means that the property itself is a bit run down, the property itself is not perfect, then you might be buying that property at a 6% yield with the potential of it being 8 or 9% in the future. You might be buying it at a 5% yield with the future being 7 or 8%. So that's where the uplift is. Now, if you're buying a perfect property, there should be nothing for you to do. So the aim of that is that it's set and forget. You just basically sit there, forget about it, and off you go. You go to work and you just collect the cash in the bank. It makes money while you sleep. Now, uplift properties doesn't do that. You actually need to put consistent work to it. So what that means is you actually need to spend time in making that property work for you. So that means that with that property, you need to contact tradespeople. You need to make sure there's leasing on it. You need to make sure that it's properly refurbished and all the capital works are done on that property so that you can put a new tenant in, create the uplift, then reap the rewards of it by selling or taking the cash flow, or getting a refinance on the property. So when you negotiate for a set and forget property, you're paying the market rate for that property, and you know you're going to get cash flow. So that property should come to you perfect. So if you go and do a pest and building report, you do a strata search, you look at the tenant, whatever you do, if you find that this property is not perfect in whatever shape or form, because it's got a roof leak, or it needs the maintenance that hasn't been done, it needs air conditioning to be replaced, you need to go back to the vendor and ask for that to be come off the purchase price, or for them to actually do that to the property, because you are actually buying the property because it's perfect, and they need to package it up, wrap it up in a bow, and hand it to you, because that's what essentially they're selling. Now, if you're buying an uplift property where it is going to be run down, where it's not going to be perfect, you're going to have month-to-month tenants, and you're buying a warts and all, you can't complain about that property. You can't go, oh no, that property's not working for me, so I don't want it, and I don't want that property now because I want you as the vendor to make that property perfect, and then I'll buy it. Well, that doesn't make sense, because you are buying it at a discounted rate with the potential built in. So you need to make sure that you are actually there to be able to do all the works, because if you didn't do all the works and you asked the vendor to do it, then might as well take it off the market, make it perfect, and then sell it for a much higher price. But by you doing the works, you can potentially make 20-30% gain on that property, which is why you have to take that property warts and all. So there may be slight things you can negotiate on. So let's say they're not up to date with a maintenance issue. So right now we have a property that is a uplift property, and they haven't had time to fix up the grease trap. Now we're going to go back to them and negotiate for them to fix up the grease trap. But in that property, we also need to refurbish the vacant property next door, and we also need to have some maybe potentially maintenance on the roof and the gutters and a few other things, which potentially could be another 10 or 15,000. But we're not going to go back to the vendor on that point. So we're going to give back to them on a minor point, but nothing else. So pick your battles. Know the strategy you're using. Know exactly what you're buying. If you're buying a set and forget property, make sure that you go back to the vendor and negotiate on every single one of those things that doesn't make the property perfect, and the vendor should fix it. If it's not, then that's a deal breaker. However, if you are buying an uplift property and you are going to get an uplift property, then what you want to do is you need to take that property warts and all. So when you go in, firstly to negotiate, make sure you get the best price possible to negotiate on that deal. So even if it's $20,000, $50,000 or $100,000 off, go into it and get to a point where you know that it's not going to make sense anymore because of the amount of capital you're going to put into it, and the uplift won't be there, and that's when you walk away from that deal, because you are not going to have the same opportunity by going back in and negotiate to get those lists of works done. So that is when a deal is broken, is when you go back in and you negotiate too much, and the vendor goes, well, I might as well do the property myself and get the uplift, so they're not going to sell it to you. And that's where the deal gets lost, and you spend all this money researching it and it gets lost. On the other end is that you lose the deal because, well, I say that you didn't lose the deal. You actually got the property, but you realized it was $20,000 worth of work to do. So you bought a perfect property, and then you paid an additional premium by having this capital works done on it. So that's a mistake that's going to burn you in commercial and makes you not want to go back in again. So make sure you pick your battles. Make sure you look at what you can negotiate on. If you need hand-holding through this process, reach out to me at helentarrant.com or Helen at Commercial Property Cashflow, or join my Facebook page so you can ask questions and get it answered. But in this process of negotiation and what to ask for and how not to fail in commercial property, especially a first deal, it's really, really tricky because you're putting all the pieces together. And this is what essentially this YouTube channel is about. So if you do need handholding and mentoring, make sure you reach out to us, because we've got a whole team that can plug in and help you through that journey, and also help you through to make sure that you actually build out the correct portfolio and you're buying the right property. So don't forget, helentarrant.com, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.